Good day, everyone. Back in October 2023, we did a podcast on picking the right occupation for your skills assessment. We touched upon how relevant skills assessing authorities check that your skills meet the standards they set to work in a relevant occupation. We spoke at length about VETASSESS and how they go about assessing occupations that are NEC, not elsewhere classified. Today we will focus our discussion on how ACS, the Australian Computer Society, assesses the skills and qualifications of IT and data science professionals. In April 2024, ACS launched a new migration skills assessment platform with the intention of making it more streamlined and delivering a superior applicant experience. I'm Arun Belur, and with me in the studio to discuss that and more is the founder of Debika Migration Services, Amitava Deb. Welcome, Amitava. Good morning.
Good morning, Arun. How are you?
I'm doing very well. You had a good weekend?
Yes, it was good and busy. I didn't work. It was just personal things.
All right, let's start off with the new ACS skills assessment that has been put into place in April 2024. Talk us through what has changed and how it was before.
In the past, it was a plain skills assessment. You could select one occupation, submit your documentation. A case officer would look at the submitted documents and then give their verdict whether your occupation meets the requirements for that selected occupation. So a lot has changed, and I think it was a push from a lot of migration agents, not necessarily me. ACS have introduced a new process through which you could choose 3 occupations in the same application. 3 occupations based on the paperwork that you submit, based on your educational background and the duties performed by you over the last few years. And accordingly, you will be awarded points. You will also be notified on the letter from which date your occupation meets the required level. I'll come to all that.
So which are those 3 occupations that you spoke about?
These are all 3 ICT occupations, okay. Occupations assessed by Australian Computer Society. They have a list of all the ICT occupations on the list for migration. However, you can choose only 3. I just want to add here, there is a lot of confusion. I get asked a lot of questions by those who are already in Australia on a 482 visa. The 482 visa has a nominated occupation, but when they proceed with their permanent residence process, they can choose an occupation which may not be the same occupation which is on their 482 visa. So they get confused. They ask me questions. Is it closely related, etc., etc. Firstly, there is no regulation which says that your occupation in 482 must be closely related to the occupation you choose for PR. Secondly, there is no thick line or thin line between all the occupations. As an ICT professional, I can wear several hats. A software engineer can also be an IT project manager and can also be a IT BA, can also be a test manager, can be a systems administrator. And all these occupations do not necessarily fall in the same occupation group. When I say occupation group, it's the first 4 digits of an ANSCO code. For example, 2613 is for Software and Application Programmers Group. It includes software engineer, analyst programmer, developer programmer, software tester, and software and application programmer NEC. NEC being not elsewhere classified. So all these occupations are generally very similar. So it is expected that you can, with the same set of duties, you can choose any of these. But you can also choose from another group. For example, 1351 is ICT project manager. As a software engineer, you might be a technical project manager. So it is okay. You can select that as well. And I'll go into the details how ACS determines that you can actually choose, or you are actually working in more than one occupation.
So let's dive into the very first stage of
Mm-hmm.
the ACS skills assessment.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that the applicant needs to do first?
Okay. First thing which the applicant needs to do is ID verification. In the past, the ID verification was documentation which you scan and upload. Now you have to do it through ID verification process, where you scan a code and then you hold the passport or your identification document, the standard. So this eliminates a lot of those misuse, somebody else using your identification to go through the process. This is the first step.
So you're verifying all your IDs using your phone.
Yeah, using a phone. Yeah, you do that. I think increasingly a lot of bodies that are sensitive to personal information do this.
And then the app probably takes a picture of you or a short video of you and saves it on their database, something like that.
I don't know the details, but it does its verification. It'll see the passport that you are holding and your image to use AI to determine it's the same person.
Just to make sure that you are who you claim to be on the application form.
Correct.
Okay.
And it has to be more than one identification. Passport is one, but you could, for example, use your New South Wales driver's license, or say if you're in India, you could use your Aadhaar card. But it has to be the physical Aadhaar card. It cannot be a copy. The system will detect.
So ACS does provide a list of all acceptable IDs.
It does. And the next one, the most important part of the process, is how do they determine which occupation. So it allows you to tell them your competency. And this is done through a framework known as SOFIA, SFIA. The full form of SFIA is Skills Framework for the Information Age. It's a global standard for describing the skills and competences required by professionals in IT.
So Sophia is the new thing that's been put into place.
Yes.
It did not exist earlier.
No. So a lot of times I do that, over the Zoom. I explain how it works because they get confused. It's actually confusing. In fact, I was part of the pilot where it was implemented. So what I have realized is I need to do a lot of hand-holding. And this is what you do. This is what Sophia Metrics. So I think it's important for everyone to understand. Go online and check what is Sophia.
So you would probably be on a Zoom call with your client when they
Yes.
are trying to put in their application.
Yeah, we're trying to guide, because Sophia Metrics has to be filled in by them, not me, based on what they think their competencies are. And those competencies have to be verifiable based on the documentation they submit. And what documentation? Mainly their experience letters, which includes the duties and responsibilities. Okay, so that comes later. So the first step is to go through the Sophia Metrics. There are 6 categories. For each category, you can select your competency and the level. And it provides elaborate guidelines on how you do that. And you can repeat it if you want. At the end of this iterative process, it'll give you a list of occupations that the system determines and evaluates and thinks these are the occupations you could fit under. And out of these, you select the top best 3. Why do you need 3? I don't necessarily agree that you need 3. But a lot of people think that having more than one occupation increases your chances of going through the PR, because every occupation has a fixed number of quota. Right, so you might be in the backlog. As a software engineer, you might be way behind if you do not have a high score. But if you are a network analyst or some occupation which is not very popular, you might be ahead in the queue, and you might be able to pass through quickly when the selection rounds happen.
So the statewide selection rounds you're talking about, right?
State-wise.
Yeah.
Mainly the state-wise and also the general category.
But the skill assessment is independent of the requirement of each state, right? This is just to verify your
Correct.
competency and skills level,
Yes.
and thereby you have to be smart enough to pick the right occupation,
ones. Yes.
so that then you can probably improve your chances
Mhm.
when you put in the application for a specific state that you're keen to migrate to.
Yeah. So after the application is put in, so Australian Computer Society will take its published turnaround time, which is between 2 weeks to 4 weeks, to give you the result. It doesn't mean it'll accept whatever you said, because it needs to be verifiable. So if you put 3 occupations, it might come back and say, we could only verify one, the other 2, based on the duty statements you have provided, do not match. So those are negative. So it is very important that you write the duty statement properly. You might be doing all these, but if you don't express yourself, ACS will not know. This is entirely a manual process. A case officer with many years of experience will go through your documentation, the duties performed by you, and try to match and see. If you've chosen business analyst, have you been doing a lot of requirements analysis? Have you been doing UAT? Have you been doing the requirements traceability metrics? And I'm not saying that these need to be explicitly mentioned, but it should be implicit based on what you have provided in the letters, that yes, you are doing these kind of things.
Where is ACS, by the way? Which state is it in?
They are in Sydney. They are in Barangaroo, beautiful office.
How far is it from our office here?
You can take the ferry directly. It takes an hour. You can get off in Barangaroo and then you can just walk. And if you're a member of ACS, you can actually go and use their office premises. Network with people. There are so many benefits. This is what Australian Computer Society is all about. It's not about just skills assessment. It is about networking with your community.
When they get back to you and they say that we feel that your skills don't fit into all these 3, but probably just 1, or maybe just 2, is there any way that, do they provide any explanation as to why they feel that you fit into a specific group of occupation and not the others?
They don't give detailed explanation, but we can appeal. There's a process to appeal. And in most cases, you can, if you are in IT and if you have done these things, you will know that why they have not given. If you think that what they have done is not correct, you can appeal and say, look, I actually did these things. But there's no scope to provide new letters. You need to elaborate based on what you have provided, expand and say, I feel probably my explanation or how I have mentioned my duty, this particular task covers this, but let me elaborate. So that is the appeal or review process. There is a cost for it.
What is the cost for skill assessment?
Earlier it used to be 500 something, 540. Now it is 1450, almost 3 times. A lot of my clients ask me, can they just select one and pay 1/3? The answer is no.
Oh, they think that it's the cost for each category that...
Well, they have not said that. Well, they said is
That's
that...
what your clients feel, I'm saying.
Yes, the clients feel, yeah. It's natural because, it's quite a substantial hike. But it is what it is.
Did they give Mara agents any reasoning as to why it has gone up by almost 3-folds?
Well, yes. It's because they have to do 3 skills assessment. And they have not increased the price for a while. Okay. They have not indexed the cost. In fact, through the pilot, when they did the pilot, the first candidate to go through the skills assessment was one of my clients. Her name is Shravya. She probably is listening.
And what's the cost for an appeal?
I have to check. I have not done the appeal. I'm going to do one for someone. I have to check. But it's on the website.
And is there a published time frame when you put in an appeal?
It has to be done within 60 days. Otherwise, it will be treated as a new skills assessment. You have to pay the full fees.
And what's the turnaround time by ACS once you put in the appeal?
I don't know because it's a new process. I have not done an appeal. But in the past, appeals and skills assessment, they used to have the same duration for turnaround.
Following that, once you have your skill assessment, what's next in line?
Once you have the skills assessment, usually, I get my clients to choose at least one occupation for which is on the long-term list, medium to long-term list. So 189 can be lodged. And for the others, if we have occupations that are on the state list, short-term list, STSOL, we can lodge the EOIs for subclass 190 and 491, provided that occupation is on the state list.
Okay, so let's come back to that skilled occupation list that you mentioned briefly. There's short-term, medium-term, and long-term.
No, medium and long-term is one list. Then there is the short-term list.
Walk me through what is this skilled occupation list and why do you need short-term and medium and long-term? What is the difference between the two?
If an occupation is on the medium to long-term list, you have access to the general category, which is subclass 189, in addition to subclass 190 and 491. If an occupation is on the short-term list, you do not have access to 189, but you have access to state-nominated subclass 190 as well as 491. And if an occupation is on the ROL, which is the regional list, you have access to subclass 491. Luckily, none of the IT occupations are on the regional list. They're either on the medium to long-term list or the short-term list. And mostly everyone knows when they come to me, they already know, they have done the homework, they know which one is long-term, which one is short-term. I'll give you the examples of short-term list. You've got network analyst, network administrators, support engineer, testers, project managers. They're all short-term list.
Okay, but now with the new regional area definition that the DHA has come up with, that gives people an opportunity to work all across Australia except Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane.
Home Affairs the Home Affairs regulation says that you can work in any regional area, but we need to be careful. The state government has an undertaking, when you lodge the regional visa, there is an undertaking where you say that you will be living in that state for at least 3 years.
Agree.
But it doesn't stop them from going to another regional area. But if the state finds out, they can cancel the visa. So I don't want to be encouraging such a decision.
But the definition that has changed about regional area, that gives people more opportunities to look for employment in larger areas in Australia.
Definition, you mean ever since the introduction of 491?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Only a few additional regions are added. So it has been a while now. So, for example, Wollongong, Newcastle, Blue Mountains, which are surrounding Sydney, earlier were not regional. They are regional now. Perth was not regional. The city of Perth is regional. In fact, all of Western Australia is regional.
What about Canberra?
Canberra is regional. I think what I would like to say is choosing the occupation carefully is very important, and one has to do a lot of research and find out which occupation has got better chances for which state. Keep in mind that if you're in Australia, you can only apply to the state where you're living. So it limits your application reach. But if you're not in Australia, you can apply to all the states. So research needs to be done properly and appropriately to do that.
Thank you for all your valuable insights on the new skills assessment that's been put into place by ACS. So thank you for listening, folks, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Amitava.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Yeah.